Welcome back. We're counting down to the May 29 handover. We're looking at some issues arising as well as the challenges. We'll kickstart with Ekiti State, where there seems to be this continued indifference, or rather continued rioting and disagreement between the executive and the House of Assembly, especially the 19 APC lawmakers. Yesterday, the Ekiti Council of Elders also cried out to the warring factions for peace at an elaborate meeting at the state capital, Ado Ekiti. The elder statesmen decried the stubborn posture of the PDP Ekiti state government and the 19 APC lawmakers, as they have both rebuffed all peace entities.
It's rather unfortunate that the Ekiti man is no more his brother's keeper. The lure of office and position has greatly devalued our age-long tradition. Unfortunately, we had failed in all these previous endeavors due to the apparent refusal of our difficult sons and daughters who are operating in the political space. The rigidity of my position has to be abandoned. So is yours. We have to meet each other somewhere. But with one basic fundamental: there is a legal government in Ekiti.
Ahead they hand over, there also seems to be some reshuffling taking place from the presidency, talking about the termination of the appointment of the Inspector General of Police. He was sacked, and of course the deputy was asked to take over in acting capacity. The acting Inspector General of Police, Solomon Arase, has promised that electoral offenders would be brought to justice to serve as deterrents to others. We saw the outgone IGP dressed in more like a civilian personnel during the handover ceremony. Of course, the acting IGP has promised also to ensure that the forthcoming elections in Imo, Taraba and Abia states are well policed by well-trained personnel. The new police chief made this pledge shortly after taking over from his predecessor, Sulaiman Abba, in Abuja.
My colleagues, I know you have seen it all. We started at a time that is very difficult in Nigerian history, a time when politics had picked up. We were getting ready for the elections, and our whole attention, I would say, was mainly on the elections, even though we kept on doing our best in managing our day-to-day activities.
National flag to the outgoing Inspector General of Police, who will in turn hand over a national flag, green, white, green, with coat of arms to the incoming 18th.
We must resolve both individually and collectively to hold our duties sacred, perform our functions with pride, and exhibit the highest level of professional excellence in all our official engagements. In line with the principle of to whom much is given and much is expected, senior police officers should be prepared to be accountable for their actions.
Unlike the ministerial appointments prior to the election that left many people asking what really are the ministers going to do, the new, or perhaps the acting Inspector General of Police, has three major elections, supplementary elections in Imo, Taraba and Abia. And many are beginning to also ask whether this new reshuffling was actually done for the sake of these rescheduled elections. I'm joined now by policymaker BALA ZAKA, joining us on Cold Digest this morning. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
You look quite African.
Thank you.
This must be in solidarity with Nigerians in South Africa.
Exactly, and the totality of Africa, because we want peace to actually come to
We'll
Africa.
get there. We'll get there, but let's start from home country here. For
Correct.
instance, you saw the report from Ekiti State. It's appalling, really, that after the world has celebrated Nigerian for conducting such a peaceful election, saying that this is even consolidating democracy, not
Correct.
only within Nigeria but outside Africa. We still have some pockets of disagreements and violence-threatening situations in a place like Ekiti. What do you make of it at this time?
To be honest with you, it's very, very unfortunate. We least expected that as Nigerians, not to talk of analysts and non-Nigerians that are outside this country. You know, we expected that by now, in the interest of peace and national unity, not at the national level, but even at state level, we expected that by now, people will have shifted their swords in Ekiti. And one surprising thing about Ekiti is this. It's like they just have forgotten that they are all Ekiti sons and daughters. If for any reason there is a destruction, it's the economy of Ekiti that will go down. At a point, you know, like when the election was conducted, the governorship election at a point, there were hate speeches, throwing of, you know, what I can best describe as venomous banters. But some of us advise that, hey, Fayemi is an illustrious son of Ekiti. Fayoshe is an illustrious son of Ekiti. If any of these guys falls dead today, Ekiti will lose. We thought that was able to sink, but surprisingly, that has not abated. But it is time for all of them to understand that already at the national level, it is clear that golden peace has been created. That's one. Then secondly, what they have demonstrated by their act shows that there is lack of, what we can best describe as inclusive democracy.
Okay.
Because if you have inclusive democracy, you can actually defeat me, but you will still want me and you to work for the growth of our nation or state.
That's right.
So we're suspecting that there is no intention to practice inclusive democracy in Ekiti State. That is one. And it seems Ekiti wants to continue to practice the politics of vengeance, emasculation, right, and exclusion.
But on whose shoulders really lie this responsibility of the peaceful harmony and inclusive democracy that you're talking about? At one hand, many are saying that the governor had been quite arrogant for a while. At the other side, many are saying that he came out recently to apologize and called for peace, that probably the 19 APC lawmakers should have sheathed the sword as well.
You know, when you talk about, an inclusive democracy or inclusive governance, what you tend to have, even in terms of negotiation, is called an integrative negotiation. An integrative negotiation simply means by the time myself and you leave that negotiating table, it is going to be a win-win situation. That was what we expected. But if you practice what we call a distributive bargain or negotiation, the intention will be, I win, you fail, or you win, I fail. And that will never help governance. As we speak today, it's very, very clear. If you're going to divide them into constituencies, anybody who is a watcher, you know, not even analysts or pundits will tell you that as of today, there are two stakeholders that just need to come together, have an understanding, and reach a congruency for Ekiti to have peace. The first one is the Chief Security Officer of Ekiti State, in the person of Chief Fayoshe. Then the second stakeholder, in this case, are the lawmakers within the state, and most importantly, the 19 lawmakers. If these two stakeholders decide to come together in the interest of the planning and generational growth of Ekiti, we will see peace overnight. And all this exchange of banters, plans to destroy economic fortunes of the respective parties will disappear or sublimate into the air.
You know, another side of the Ekiti story would be if this inclusive democracy would also come to bear with the incoming administration, because we're not beginning to talk about what happens to
when you
the
talk about the incoming administration, are you talking at the national level or state level?
I'm talking about the relationship now between the incoming administration at the national level with the opposition now, the PDP in Ekiti State, because the discussion now is the position that the executive governor took before the elections, and then how that affects the economic ties, the political ties between the state government and the federal. Do you see this incoming administration looking beyond all of this to focus on the welfare of the people at large?
I hope so. You hope so. Nigerians hope so. Africa hopes so. And the whole world hopes so for Nigeria. That's all I can tell you. But one thing people need to understand is when you talk about governance, governance simply means people, citizens or electorates want to entrust their economic and political destiny into the hands of somebody called a leader. And that simply means once the elections are done and dusted with, the next thing you need to now look is how to lead the people as a whole. Now, not talking about those who voted for you or not voted for you. And if you truly want to do what? Practice inclusive democracy. What that simply means, if within your camp, probably you defeated me or I defeated you, and within your camp, we have great people that will lead to the growth of either the local government, the state, or the federation, right? We will bring them on board. So what we will personally be disappointed as Nigerians if the national level decides to bring what is happening in Ekiti State into what is going on with them. We wouldn't want it, because at the national level, you're looking at the strata of Nigeria as a whole.
That's right.
At the national level, when you look at Ekiti is more of a localized thing. But the intention is national level will help in mediating. Because we have already accepted that we don't want to practice the democracy of vengeance or exclusion. We want to practice what we call integrative and what? Internal democracy.
Let's turn our attention quickly to what transpired yesterday, where we saw the former IGP Suleiman Abba handing over to Suleiman Arese. Many are beginning to wonder how come that is happening 5 weeks to the termination of the incumbent administration, especially when the call for such action was rife before the general election. What was your initial reaction to this news?
To be honest with you, there is a saying in my local dialect that what looks powerful and terrifying to you today may look like something pitiable tomorrow. And that's life. Many people didn't expect it. And even those who were feeling that probably the IGP should be shown the way out were not happy with the way and manner they received the news of his exit or termination or sack or whatever. It's a bit disappointing. And this will affect strategic managers. And when you talk about strategic managers, you're talking about people you appoint, whether politically or especially politically, to go and head whether parastatals, agencies, and the rest. Because if people can be booted out like that, it was very clear that IGP Abba is 56 years old, which means he has about 4 years to go. It was very, very clear that he was just warming up. And all of a sudden, his career was brought to an abrupt end. Whatever must have been the lack of understanding or the fault he committed, I think many people are hearing that he had about his sack on the news. Until the time he even handed over, he was expecting that he was supposed to have been briefed. So I think many people saw it more like humiliation.
There are a lot of insinuations as regards why he was sacked, but what's your personal opinion about his performance as the IGP?
Well, as the IGP, I will rate him fair. And the reason why I would say I will rate him fair is because just before that time, you remember Nigeria conducted its election on the first election was on the 28th of March, right? Within that time frame, and just after the announcement of the result, we saw something that will have destroyed the strata of Nigeria but was contained. We saw what an ex-minister in the name of Chief Orubebe did. We saw the way the umpire conducted himself. We also saw the way and manner security agencies conducted themselves. If it were to be before, with the conduct that Orubebe demonstrated or displayed, the usual security or police of Nigeria will have just grabbed him. But if you look at it, they behave in a fairly decent manner. All they were saying, okay, sir, you have made your point. Can you sit down? And some of those people, that security police people that were hanging around him, some were of equivalent of the DIGs. Some were like of the equivalent of the rank of commissioners of police. So that tells you some level of refinement was put in. General discipline was expected, and the manhandling of general electorates in the 2015 election has gratefully improved compared to what happened in 2011. In 2011, we still remember some youths were playing football in one area of Lagos, and a youth was shot dead by the police then. We still remember all these things. So total refining, cleansing has taken place morally within the police, right from the time of IG Abubakar to the time Suleiman Abba took over. So I think I will rate them fairly reasonable and fairly high.
The highlights of his career would definitely be the tear gassing of lawmakers at the floor of at the complex of the National Assembly, and his position also thereafter during the election, asking the electorate to go back home after voting. What are your thoughts about those major and decisive decisions during his career?
Well, it all depends. Whatever you can do to avoid anarchy or destruction of lives and property, adopt it. You know, nobody, okay, let's assume he did that. In fact, there was a statement that was not too palatable, but it turned out and worked. When Joseph Mbu was posted to Lagos State, I think when he got there, one of the things he said then was, kill one policeman and I will kill 10 civilians. And I'm telling you, do you know, psychologically, it worked. Though we didn't like the utterance, because some people on the election, they were saying, hey, if you kill one policeman, no, Mbu will kill 10 of us. If you slap one policeman, Mbu will slap 10 civilians. Psychologically, it worked. Personally, I want to believe the system is getting cleansed, especially at least in the moral way they conduct themselves, especially when they are with people that are non-security agents, like people like us that are best described as bloody civilians. You know, I think they are a bit decent. The corrupt aspect part, the bribe-taking part, we don't really know. But in terms of the professionalism, I think they can be given some reasonable mark.
Ultimately, I think the biggest challenge is the independence of our security operatives, because we saw certain decisions that many believe were politically colorated. At some time, the IDP could not bring himself to identify with Aminu Tambuwa as the Speaker of the House. Many questioned whether he was in the right position to interpret the law as a policeman. But then, let's look at it ultimately. How do we achieve the independence of the police, the military, at subsequent times in our national
I think, to be honest with you, if we want heads of agencies or strong bodies to work effectively, I think there may be a need to do or look at the Nigerian constitution again. Because based on the current constitution, I think the president can hire and fire or can promote and also relieve people. So that simply means at every point in time, your loyalty is to him or to her as the president and not to the country. That needs to be looked into. And also, the leaders also need to be made aware that if you appoint people to strategic positions and you treat them in the way and manner that will bring about disrespect and disdain, you will be discouraging others that have that pool of knowledge, pool of experience to share in that country or in that state, as far as governance is concerned.
Considering also that there are 3 supplementary elections that would take place in Imo, Taraba, and Abia, do you see any relationship with the sack of the IGP?
No, it still wouldn't change anything, because you're talking about the governorship election now. It's not going to change. And remember, even when you talk about IGP, you're talking about just one person. Just like when you
One
talk
person
about...
that can influence
No,
many other officers.
it depends. It depends on who his lieutenants are. You can be betrayed by your lieutenants. Your lieutenants can even fail you in terms of professionalism. You know, we had that. Even the outgoing president of Nigeria had people that betrayed him among his lieutenants. You can't just do anything about that. Even among your children, you can be betrayed. Among your clan, you can be betrayed. That is expected. But one thing we want is this: for people that will occupy positions of governance, there is a need to make sure their credentials, first of all, are okay. Once the credentials are okay, then you need to also check and find out if this guy is credible and has the integrity and his credentials are okay, regardless of his extraction within the country. Give him that responsibility. But if you give him that responsibility, respect him also and give him the necessary authority. Everybody wants to be appreciated, whether you employed him or not. Even a house help that you brought from the age of kindergarten at some point will demand some level of appreciation, and people will psychologically serve you well. Then back to what you are saying, there is a need for autonomy, really. Though we've said that the constitution needs to be looked into. And that's why people are happy to some extent that the judiciary is probably fairly okay in the way they administer or they adjudicate. You know, but for other agencies, like the security agencies, believe me, you can appoint me, but you should also allow me to work. And if you feel I don't have what it takes for you to appoint me in national interest, then appoint the right person. But if you appoint me to achieve a given objective for you, and after that, you feel you can just dump me, you are not only destroying me and also destroying yourself, you are discouraging successive people in lines of governance.
But then should we also start considering the mode of appointment of certain strategic office holders in Nigeria?
100% sure and correct. But that's why we are now saying go back to the constitution. Because there is every possibility that if you go back to the constitution, you find out that the way and manner people are humiliated, you know, have already been accepted and enshrined in the constitution. So until you do something about that, it will be slightly difficult.
I see. Let's go to South Africa because many are beginning to look at the trend of things ahead and over. It looks as if certain new security challenges are also springing up. We see young Nigerians, of course, it's still a peaceful protest right now, but there are threats from certain quarters of the country that there are also South African businesses in Nigeria, and they could as well do the same, you know, and make them suffer the same fate like Nigerian businesses are doing in South Africa. Let's also look at the position of the Senate. The Senate president also was caught to probably threaten South Africa that don't push us beyond our elastic limits. How do you read the signs?
Based on what is happening in South Africa, a tit-for-tat approach must never and should never be adopted. That is the advice to every Nigerian or every country within the continent of Africa that had their citizens, you know, either killed or businesses destroyed. The reason why I'm telling you this is very simple and clear. By the practical acts of the xenophobic attitude we saw, I can tell you, number one, right, the light of peace, stability, strength, and the greatness of South Africa has been extinguished. That light has been extinguished. That's number one. The soil of peace, stability, economic growth in South Africa has been made to become carcinogenic. And when a soil is carcinogenic, you can't plant again and let it grow. By this act of xenophobia that we also experience, I can tell you, the labors of great Africans, particularly South Africa, like the Thabo Mbeki, Steve Biko, Walter Sisulu, Oliver Tambo, Nelson Mandela, and even the great Thabo Mbeki that came recently into Nigeria, their labor has been rubbished. And if this issue of violence or xenophobic attitude is not controlled, their labor will not only be tarnished or rubbish, it will be consigned to the negative side of history. And that is not good. South Africa should not forget that what they did is, first of all, or what the South Africans demonstrated was very sad for the continent of Africa. And fundamentally, even within SADC, that is South African Development Community, right? People are disappointed. Among those 15 countries, none of their nationals, the countries that form SADC, none of their nationals was spared if the national had been caught. But they shouldn't also forget that one of the things that brought SADC together, as I think 1992 when they are formed, the intention was to bring about integration, poverty eradication through economic development, peace, and stability. And their commitment was to have a common and great future. By this act, all those mottos, logos, and expectations have been destroyed.
Just a minute. Let me open the phone line very quickly. We have a caller now. What's your name and where are you calling from?
My name is Mohammed Bello. I'm calling from Agege.
From Agege. Please turn down the volume of your TV set and go ahead with your contribution.
All right. All right. I've done that.
Please go ahead now.
Now, I just wanted to make contribution concerning the dismissal of the Inspector General of Police.
Okay.
Abba. I strongly believe that it is not encouraging for the younger ones, you know, for Abba to have been dismissed in such a manner that does not even warrant. Even as a casual worker, you can never do that kind of a thing. For somebody that has served Nigeria for more than 31 years in his lifespan. Let's agree that this man refused to recognize Tambuwal as the Speaker of the Federal House of Reps when he became from PDP to APC. Let us see that he tear-gassed the National Assembly members simply because they wanted to force themselves into the National Assembly to continue their business of the day. Now, let us even agree that this man said voters should leave the voting center when they cast their votes. All this can never be amounted to a disgraceful dismissal of somebody that has served this country meritoriously since 1984 up to date. And you are now saying what type of government we have in this country. Yes, Abba has his own shortcomings, but there is a way that you can do it and give him that kind of honor that, okay, this man should be allowed to resign on his own. I strongly disagree with Jonathan, even though he has less than 1 month to leave the mantle of the power to General Buhari. We all voted for Buhari. We all want change. We wanted change. We don't want all this rubbish these people are doing with all the people, the people that surrounded him. If Abba wanted to behave like in those days, the Adewusis did, I strongly believe that Orubebe would have been manhandled and thrown out of that place the way he was talking that day. But now, if somebody can do, look at Ogunsaki, they said Ogunsaki to go to River State, to go and play their own masters or something. This man refused to do it. And when this man was refusing to recognize Tambuwal, and he now tear-gassed people at the National Assembly, he was playing their game. When he now refused to put Ogunsaki to that place, now they said this man should go and they disgrace him out of the office. What kind of government do we have in this country? Please, I want you to please tell Jonathan, if there is a way you can even recompensate this man has done his best for this country. He He has just been Inspector General of Police for only 8 months. What are we talking about?
It's all right. I believe you made your point there. Unfortunately, I don't have Mr. President's phone number. I would have called him and, tell him your message. He obviously corroborated some of the ideas that you shared earlier on that issue. But we're talking about South Africa. I'm actually quite concerned about the position of Nigeria because there's a limit to which we can do, in contributing to the economic reality of the average South African. But there's a lot we can do as regards the diplomatic ties that exist between the two countries. For instance, the Senate has urged the federal government to consider taking the Zulu king Goodwill Zwelithini before the ICC for instigating attack on foreign nationals. You recall that the king came out afterwards, called the meeting at a particular stadium, said that probably he was quoted out of context and asked the people to sheathe their sword.
I mean, you see, if you look at the way these things played out, I mean, we've explained it already. The light of greatness of South Africa has just been extinguished. That soil of peace that South Africa had before and kept there, where people went now and are contributing to their own growth and the growth of South Africa, that soil has been contaminated. It is now carcinogenic. We've also talked about the effect of this thing has caused what? The labor of leaders past of South Africa to almost be looking rubbished. But don't forget that in 1994 or thereabout, it was the same South Africa that was calling on other countries to come and invest in South Africa. We knew when all these things were happening. I would not expect the Nigerian government to say they will jump and do anything. But even the South African government, I can tell you, they are 100% disappointed. All those people that will go to the Stellenbosch and go to the wine villages and drink and enjoy themselves, all the tourist name, greatness and that opportunity they used to have where world celebrities go to South Africa, I can tell you there will be a reduction in all this.
But do you think
and it will affect the economy of South Africa.
Do you think the Nigerian government is doing enough at this time to stem down the violence tendency within the country? Because beyond just being emotional and being reactionary, we have to also tell Nigerians that most of the people working with MTN are Nigerians. Most of the people working
that was
in
why we said it is not a tit for tat approach. You don't help your fellow brothers when they are in problem. Remember, it's the South Africans that are doing that now. It's not a Thabo Mbeki. It's not Desmond Tutus. They are not those doing this. It's not Jacob Zuma. We need to understand that. It's fellow or young South Africans or ordinary South Africans that didn't probably understand that you need the blend of your national and the national of other countries to grow your national economy. And one thing we need to understand then, if Nigerians decide to react in the same coin, then that means you are having two wrongs. Two wrongs can never make a right.
We'll take a commercial break here just a minute, and we'll be back with you to discuss some more of all these issues, especially the impact that this will have on the ties, the diplomatic ties between the two countries and, the entire continent of Africa. When we come back as well, we'll also open the phone line so we can have your feel of this issue. Stick around. Don't go away.
Introducing Smart Connect, where get plenty awoof to allow you talk, text, and browse nyafu for tin in the money. Igwe. Say you know say with just 200 naira recharge card, Airtel they summer me with 200% bonus to yarn more with any network.
Now you not call me your fiance.
Relax. In fact, I don't buy your own address every day. As correct vessel, anytime I recharge 200 naira and above, Smart Connect they suffer me with free internet to browse. If you want to make your family follow you enjoy, buy your 4-in-1 family pack for the price of one. Oh baby.
Akururu. This girl too, na family and friends.
No carry last to buy your Airtel SIM today.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
Every day, every hour, and every minute, news break in Nigeria. things happen so fast, it's most times difficult to track and comprehend them. But that's what we do right here on Digit 360. 2015, would you want to come back again?
It's like asking Jesus Christ if he knew he was going to die, will you want to come back as the savior of the world again?
We do not just help you track the stories, we break them down, explore all the angles, analyze the issues so that you can fully comprehend the stories and use them to make the right decisions.
You can now watch Core TV News live from anywhere in the world on our website www.coretvnews.com. Click on Live TV on our website and watch us live.
And welcome to Core TV Primetime News.
To follow us on Twitter, click on Twitter icon on our website. On Facebook, click on the Facebook and YouTube to see all our previous news production. You can also watch us live on YouTube. Click Core TV, leave a space, then News. Core TV News, a 24-hour news station.
From time immemorial, women have birthed life, shaped character, and by extension, influenced the society. Moremi of Ife, Emoten of Benin, Queen Aminat of Zaria, all women of influence and power.
Whether it's before election, after election.
How ironical. Women being so powerful, yet have few grounds in decision making.
I see you as a wife, and I see you as a wife to a man.
We are talking women in politics.
A woman will be bold enough to stand up and say, I want to become president of Nigeria.
Only on Core TV News.
Welcome back. We're looking at issues ahead. The handover, of course, some major challenges as well as controversies. Bala ZAKA is still very much with me in the house. Thank you very much for finding time to come today.
Thank you.
The xenophobic attack in South Africa is generating lots of concerns within the African continent. But what impact really do you see all of this having on the ties between Nigeria and South Africa?
It's not really going to affect Nigerians' ties with South Africa to a great extent, because it's not government to government that are having the misunderstanding, right? It's not a real, true political and diplomatic war that we are having. What is happening is the economy of a particular country is beginning to take some heat, probably due to mismanagement by the leaders and the planners of that economy. And the citizens decided to rise and be heard. But maybe the approach they used was the approach that everybody condemns. They decided to now start reacting and inflicting pains and injuries on countries, fellow brothers keepers that help and supported them to get their freedom or liberation. That is the thing. Because if you look at it today as we speak, the two greatest words that
xenophobia is an unreasonable
dehumanization, unfortunately and sadly, are coming out of South Africa. The first one is racial discrimination or apartheid. It's associated with South Africa. Then xenophobia, which is a fear and hate for strangers. These two words are not good words. And naturally, I can tell you, there will be a gradual but definite departure of so many investors, job seekers, and the rest who are within South Africa that are not of South African descent. And economically or macroeconomically, it's not going to do good to any South African. But the good thing about also the Nigerian government is, whether you are talking about the current dispensation or the dispensation that will be coming in, they know they supported South Africa. We have always been talking about the unity of Africa. Remember, we also have the AU. It's so much of a disappointment and not expected. But the reaction will not be to also destroy the economic fortunes of South Africans here.
Let me take one more call. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
What's your name? Who are you calling from?
Ore calling from Agege.
Ore from Agege. Please turn down the volume of your TV set and go ahead with your contribution.
Ore, I'm calling from Agege.
Go ahead, please.
Okay.
Okay, let me do that. I just want to comment on the issue of the fact or the removal of the ID, Suleiman Abba.
Okay.
Let's assume the man has done much before the election, with the allegation that has been on ground that the man did this, the man did that. The president himself was supposed to have removed him or sack him before the election, not after he must have lost the election. So, what I'm trying to say is that if we might have appointed somebody into an office of a professionalism, allow that very particular person to do his or her work according to the Professions Act. Not for you that they are appointed that we have appointed somebody there that we want to be dictating for him or her on what to do. So, in the case like this, I believe the Mr. President, Goodluck Jonathan, was supposed to have taken a right step rather than after he might have lost the election to the opposition party now. That is when we can be able to say, okay, I remove you, I sack you. It's not done. He's supposed to have followed the normal protocol or for him to have do the right thing at the right time, not after he might have lost the election. What message now is he giving to the other professionals of another body, like army officers, NDLA, immigration, custom, and so on and so forth? So if you have appointed somebody to do the work, allow him or her to do the work on the professionalism, not for me as a person. Look, I've appointed you, I can be dictating for you. This is what you're supposed to do, this is what you're supposed to do. So they should allow the appointees, the people they appointed to announce it, to be doing their free work according to how it's supposed to be, not for the people that appointed them to be dictating for them. So that is what I see in the Jonathan sack of the sack of whatever. Even the so-called the governor of the state, they do it to the justice, the chief judge of their state. They want to be dictating for them. So in the kind of the dictatorship upset, she should not be able to be coming off.
Thank you very much, Ore, for your contribution from Agege in Lagos. Let's turn our attention to the handover proper. And because prior to this time, amazingly, we seem to have heard from the federal government that the proper handover will take place on May 28 during a dinner ceremony, and that they will allow the incoming administration to enjoy May 29. That raised some dust, many asking the constitutionality, of that. But the federal government seems to have recanted on its earlier position now, and we're going to quickly find out what the Minister of Information have to say. Patricia Akwashike said after the Federal Executive Council meeting that May 29 remains the handover date.
Little problem of the May 28 being, peddled as handover date. And we want to clarify that 28th of May is not the date for handover. Handover and inauguration will take place on the 29th of May, which is also our Democracy Day. So please, let's get it right. We have started the transition. It's ongoing. We are handing over our departmental and ministry briefs to the office of the SGF, who would now prepare the handover notes. When you have a transition committee, we have ours, and the incoming government has its own transition committee. They sit together and look at all these issues. The paperwork is what we are talking of, up to the 28th. Please, let's get it straight, that the president is still the president till the 29th of May, when Buhari takes his oath of office and resumes as president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
To have given us the impression that she was misquoted. Is it safe to say that probably PDP hasn't handed over after a tenure, so we can understand the challenges that they're going through right now? But beyond all of these celebrations, of a change really at the center, do you foresee, or have you been able to identify some projects, some initiatives by the incumbent administration that needs to be continued by the incoming one?
So many. But just before I go into that, let me just quickly round up on on the issue of the IGP.
Okay.
You know, like we all discussed, he's about 56 years old now. Ordinarily, he has like 4 more years to go. One thing that needs to also be advised or suggested is it takes so much money, so much time and investment to train and groom such people. So it is necessary also that leadership should give the citizens the opportunity to get so much
from
in
such
terms
people.
of services for such people. Because to train somebody from a cadet to an inspector general of police or to a senior officer is not a joke. A country must have invested in time, must have invested in finances, and must have invested in so many things. So sometimes, please, they should allow the citizens to benefit from the dividend of the investment that was incurred on such citizens. Election and handover date. I think sometimes it's always good to wait for the official position of government. The rumors were arrived all over and in different colors, right, that the handover was going to be on the 28th. But what now that we are hearing directly from the government is saying what is just going to have is like a dinner, a gathering together. And in the process, nobody knows. Maybe the incoming president will give something to the outgoing president will give something to the incoming president. Let them appreciate themselves. Let them meet at a dinner, appreciate one another prior or on the eve of the handover. There is nothing wrong with that. Whether in developed democracies or local democracies, we see that before the handover, people will meet, have dinner together, appreciate one another. Because even from the way Jonathan conceded defeat, Jonathan called General Buhari and said, "Your Excellency." And General Buhari was also replying him, "Your Excellency." These are the kind of things we want to see. And it's been said it is what? 29th of May 2015 will remain sacrosanct. We pray we get to that point. But now, before the election, we were always saying 3 gladiators will determine the success or failure of the entire election. The 3 stakeholders, sorry, not gladiators, the 3 stakeholders were 1, the umpire, 2, what? The electorate, and 3, the politicians. We felt if the umpire behaves well, things will go well. If the electorate behaves well, things will go well. And if the politicians behave well, things will go well. At the end of the day, we saw it across the strata. Each stakeholder at the end behaved well, and we had a decent and fair election, right? Election will never be devoid of likely lacunas that are negative. But the good thing, overall rating, it went on fine. Look at again something that has happened. As we speak today, at the national level, we have a victor, we have a hero, and we have a winner. The victor, or those who are victorious, are Nigerian citizens and residents of Nigeria.
Okay.
Those are the victorious people. Then the hero was President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, and the winner was General Muhammad Buhari. The reason why I'm saying this is because President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan has prepared the political seed, the political soil of peace.
I see.
And that is what he is handing over to Buhari and to Nigerians. He is giving us the political soil of peace. Then we are now waiting on President-elect Muhammadu Buhari to come now and plant the seed of peace, growth, and development. That has been what has now been given at the national level.
I see.
And we appreciate that. And so what we are now seeing also at the state level is the same thing. We've seen some states, even a hot state like Lagos State and Kaduna State, where, I don't want to say defeated candidates, where first runner-ups
considered defeat,
considered it, and congratulated the winners.
Although
So
the parties are going to court.
Yes.
We have to wrap up this segment, Bala ZAKA, but let me quickly have your take on the projects or perhaps the policies that you have identified that needs to be continued by this incoming administration.
There are so many of them. But what I just want to say in totality is this. The incoming president or the president-elect, General Buhari, has not been in exile. Right? And I don't think there was any time General Buhari spent more than 1 month outside Nigeria. That simply means he is part and parcel of Nigeria. He knows everything that is going on. He knows what's going on with the estate industry. He knows what's going on with the health industry, the oil and gas industry, the stock market, the financial institutions, by virtue of being within Nigeria. Right? That simply means he's not just coming from exile to come and be given paper on what to do. Right? We are talking about practical economic management now, practical leadership management. Right? Between now and the end of 2015, we hope to see reconciliation across party lines, individual lines, and economic lines. Those are the things we are expecting. Then after that, post 29 May 2015, we will hope and expect that President-elect, right, General Buhari, then President, will have supportive lieutenants. Whether they are from your party or the other party, or they are just technocrats, you need supportive lieutenants to succeed. Because no matter how visionary you are as a leader, if you don't have supportive lieutenants, in this case, your appointees, your ministers, and even your lawmakers, you are not likely to politically and economically lead your country effectively.
It's all right. I'm sure that we'll have some more time later on to bring you again and discuss all of these issues. But ZAKA, thank you very much for finding time to join us today on
Thank you.
Digest.
And congratulations to Nigeria. And we also pray that South Africa will soon gain peace, which will be good for the continent of Africa and the entire world.
When we come back, we'll talk about the aftermath of the 2015 election, the Lagos experience, quite an interesting election in the commercial hub of the country. Stick around, don't go away.
Every day, every hour, and every minute, news break in Nigeria. Things happen so fast, it's most times difficult to track and comprehend them. But that's what we do right here on Digit 360. 2015, would you want to come back again?
It's like asking Jesus Christ if he knew he was going to die, will you want to come back as the savior of the world again?
We do not just help you track the stories, we break them down, explore all the angles, analyze the issues so that you can fully comprehend the stories and use them to make the right decisions.